The banking house of the Vernons was known through all the home counties as only second to the Bank of England in stability and strength. That is to say, the people who knew about such matters, the business people, the professional classes, and those who considered themselves to be acquainted with the world, allowed that it ought to be considered second. But this opinion was not shared by the greater proportion of its clients, the shopkeepers in Redborough and the adjacent towns, the farmers of a wide district, and all the smaller people whose many united littles make up so much wealth. To them, Vernon's bank was the emblem of stability, the impersonation of solid and substantial wealth. It had risen to its height of fame under John Vernon, the grandfather of the present head of the firm, though it had existed for 2 or 3 generations before him. But John Vernon was one of those men in whose hands everything turns to gold. What the special gift is which determines this, it is difficult to tell, but there can be little doubt that it is a special gift, just as it is a particular genius which produces a fine picture or a fine poem. There were wiser men than he, and there were men as steady to their work and as constantly in their place, ready for all the claims of business, but not one other in whose hands everything prospered in the same superlative way. His investments always answered, his ships always came home, and under his influence the very cellars of the banking house, according to the popular imagination, filled with gold. At one period of his career, a panic seized the entire district, and there was a run upon the bank, by which it was evident anybody else must, nay ought, to have been ruined. But John Vernon was not ruined. It was understood afterwards that he himself allowed that he did not understand how he had escaped, and nobody else could understand it. But he did escape, and as a natural consequence became stronger and richer and more universally credited than ever. His son after him had not the same genius for money, but at least he had the genius for keeping what he had got, which is next best. Edward Vernon, however, was not so fortunate in his family as in his affairs. He had 2 sons, one of whom died young, leaving a little daughter to be brought up by her grandfather. The other went wrong. Oh, never-ending family tragedy. Never-ending, still beginning. The darkest anguish that exists in the world.